All right, let's get into a whole lot of other issues on a Monday. Joining me now, national editor at the Australian, Dennis Shanahan, and Sky's contributor, Chris Uhlmann. Gents, we'll go straight to work from home. Julia made the point there, the coalition dumping that policy today. Chris, it became something that was less about the Canberra bureaucrat and more, I guess, the fear, particularly for women, they say, that it would be a right taken away in every workplace around the country. Did he have any other option, and will this end it for the coalition? Now that this policy is dumped, will they be able to move on?
Well, I'm assuming, Peter, that what the coalition was seeing as tracking polling was the same thing that the Labor Party was seeing, and that this was killing it, and their messaging was so bad that they had to dump it and get as far away from the policy they possibly could. Will they let them forget it? No, I think they'll make them wear it like a crown of thorns all the way through to election day. Why? Because first and foremost, it looks inept. Secondly, they'll be able to raise the question about how they're going to pay for some of the cuts that they are. So those cuts are going to pay for some of the promises that they're making. And thirdly, the Labor Party will simply say they're going to do it anyway. They're just waiting until after the election. They're all the things that you or I would do if we were in the same position as the Labor Party finds itself in now. The thing I find amazing is that a coalition government led by a Liberal Party, which should be the party of small government, now can't go to an election campaign arguing for smaller government, which used to be standard. That, you know, page 1, chapter 1 of the Liberal Party was, we're going to cut government spending. Now they can't even do that. Like, you know, that really is a pretty big blow for them in this part of the campaign.
Yeah, Chris, at the top of the show I said, you know, it's always been the right side of the politic that says government is big as it needs to be to do all the things that we can't do as citizens for ourselves, but as small as possible. And I fear they went out way too early on this. They did not need to go out there when they went out there about 4 weeks ago. But when they went out on this issue, they had basically nothing else to discuss. So it was this and daylight. And Labor's very cunningly linked it to Donald Trump, just as Trump's sort of popularity in Australia has really fallen away. But it's not a Trumpian policy. This is core business if you're a coalition government.
You would think so. It has been forever, right? Well, it did until we got to the big government conservatives. We can talk about them another day. But what we're seeing here is a really serious position for the Liberal Party now if it cannot reduce the size of government, which was what this policy was all about. So I find that this is an extraordinary position for the Liberal Party to find itself in, particularly at this part of the campaign. And they now need to look at the way that they message things. And they can't tell a long-term story. I would have been spending the last 3 years pointing out to people that the Australian bureaucracy is the highest paid bureaucrats, in the world, and that we've seen a massive expansion of them, and now many of them are working from home, and there are very serious questions about how hard some of them are working from home. You know, make that case for a couple of months or for a couple of years, and then you're in a position to do something.
And they're not working from home in Canberra, I might add. They're working from home in their caravans and all around the country, trying to connect back.
They're not working from home, some of them.
Yeah, correct. Dennis, talk to me about Newspoll today. Another boost here for Labor. Primaries unchanged. Labor's primaries at 33. A drop, though, in the coalition. 1 point down to 36. Two-party preferred. It's where, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's where Labor was at the last election. That was a shocking result for Labor. But they're on the improve, and it feels like absolutely they got that momentum a couple of weeks ago and they are hanging on to it.
Peter, I tend to disagree with you a little bit there, because I think that what the Newspoll has shown is not so much momentum for Labor, but a loss of Liberal momentum. And also, there is very little movement in this poll. A point here or there. Yes, the two-party preferred calculation shifted. It's better for Labor, and of course that's better for the government. But I think that it's too early yet to say that the momentum is with the Labor Party. Clearly, the Liberals are not having a good start to the campaign. But curiously, the only number in that Newspoll today, which actually was anywhere near the margin of error, was actually an improvement for Peter Dutton on the preferred Prime Minister. So the actual, you know, when you look at the numbers, the biggest shift was a positive for Peter Dutton. But I think it still comes down to that where these changes are occurring, in which states, and of course, in which seats. I think that, yes, the government's better off with an extra point on that two-party preferred advantage, but I think that it is too early to say that Peter Dutton's written off and the Labor Party's got a winning momentum.
No, I'm not saying that.
And well, it's just a question, and of course, momentum's important. It really is important, and so are perceptions. And I think this poll has helped the perceptions for the government, but fundamentally, there are still real problems there for Labor, particularly on that primary vote. I mean, they're celebrating because they're back to where they were at the last election when they won by one seat. They're going into this election with a majority of 2.
And it was their worst result since the 1940s too. So, I do not at all, in any way, shape or form, roll the coalition here or say that they can't come back from where they are now. But clearly they've got to improve, because they don't just need to get to minority government given that horseshoe. They've really got to try and get to a majority position. That's the challenge for them. Talk to me today about what happened on the stock exchange in the political sense here, Chris Uhlmann, because $100 billion wiped off. Yes, there's been some recovery this afternoon. I'll get into the economics and how it might play out with interest rates in a moment with Warren Hogan. But we know in Canada, I'm watching Canada really closely, the Conservatives in Canada were in the box seat to win. Then rolls in Trump, and he has basically turned it around, and the left look like they could be returned, which I find extraordinary, but that's where they are. And it's sort of been the same sort of response to Trump in this contest in Australia, with that soft, undecided vote.
Absolutely, and look, there are some big Trump supporters, and some of those big Trump supporters watch Sky News, but I can tell you that that's not a majority of Australians. So say 20% of people support Donald Trump in Australia and think that he's doing a great thing and would like to see more of it, would like to see some of it here. That's a minority of the Australian electorate. Now, he genuinely does unsettle a lot of Australians, and if that can be hung around the neck of the coalition, and that's a problem. And if you keep saying to people, as they have been messaging, which is that we'll deal better with Donald Trump than the Labor Party is, we're getting to a point where that sounds a bit like the guy in the bar who says that bloke with the broken bottle is my best mate. You've got to be very careful about the way that you attach yourself to Donald Trump. And going to the share market, what does the share market matter, not just in Australia, but overseas to most Australians? There's superannuation. And that will be a very big deal as this continues to roll on. If the markets continue to tumble, and people who have money tied up through their superannuation will begin to wonder about their future. And that then brings in the older spectrum of voters for the coalition, where they usually have their larger base of people. If they're getting unsettled, then that's not good for the coalition. And the other thing in this campaign is Easter comes in the middle of it. We'll be voting in a fortnight. There's very little time left, Peter, for the coalition to make a big splash and to capture people's imagination. So if they're hiding something up their sleeve, they better bring it out soon.
Get it out, get it out, get it out. Hey, Dennis, when you're watching tomorrow the Sky News debate, because these are questions from ordinary people and the two men are very close together on the same shared stage, I think this is such an interesting election debate, because you really see how they relate to ordinary people. What are you going to be looking for tomorrow night?
Oh, well, I think obviously, the campaign is going to decide the election, and points like this debate are really pivotal for both sides. What we have to see from both leaders is, first of all, no mistakes. Anyone who makes a mistake is going to be in deep trouble. Peter Dutton, who's had a slow start, can't afford any mistakes at all. And what we have to see from the Prime Minister is his ability to actually get across detail. What we have seen in the last couple of days, particularly with the Port of Darwin, where he has got the Labor Party into trouble. He's made a mistake about what the policy was. He's overstated it, and now he's constantly trying to walk back. And he gave Peter Dutton a little window there after Peter Dutton had that slow start. So I think what we'll be looking for is for Anthony Albanese to demonstrate, and remember, he wasn't good on detail in the first election campaign,
no.
although he won. but there will be a real pressure on him to get the details right. For Peter Dutton, it'll be the challenge to actually try and lift the spirit and lift the rhetoric and concentrate on the economy and cost of living. This is where we're going to move in the debate to the economy. We've had all these disruptions, we'll have more, but what we have to see, a Prime Minister across the detail and a Leader of the Opposition who's able to lift the spirits of his side.
And message discipline, I'd have to say, to Peter Dutton. All right, I'll leave it there. Gents, thank you very much. See you next week.